Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of TG Talk. I'm your host, Cody Delmendo, and I am the coordinator of communications for the Fraternity Service Center. And I'm happy to bring you another Foundation episode featuring SAE alumnus and Governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum. This episode focuses on the lifelong significance of fraternal membership and the importance of values-based leadership. Once you finish the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a review and tell us what you think. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at Sigma Alpha Epsilon, on Facebook at SAE Fraternity, and on Twitter at SAE 1856. And of course, you can search Sigma Alpha Epsilon on LinkedIn to find us as well. So let's get into it.
Come sing to Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Epsilon, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Sigma Alpha, Alpha, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Sigma Alpha,
Burgum, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to do this interview. Been looking forward to some time now. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Steve, first of all, I just want to say honored to be part of this, and thank you for your leadership, the work that you're doing, and everybody at national and everybody at the chapter level, because SAE has been such an important part of my life, and it continues to be an important part of my life. I just want to say again, thank you for the great work, because building a future generation of leaders and doing that, built around the values of SAE, built around the true gentleman. America needs young leaders like this more than ever. And I think the work is more important than ever. So honored to be with you. But in terms of background, I grew up in Arthur, North Dakota. It was a town at its peak, about 400 people. I spent my first 18 years there. We got to 400 people by counting the 100 people that lived in the Good Samaritan home. Otherwise, we'd have been like 300. So we were a 400 person community. I went to North Dakota State University undergrad. Knew coming in that I was going to pledge SAE, best fraternity on campus. My older brother had been in SAE, had friends from hometown that were there, and SAE was leaders in everything, whether it was student government, service organizations, athletics, music and theater, academics. I mean, it was a very competitive Greek system back in the 70s at NDSU, very active, and SAE was the top of the top, still is, by the way, at North Dakota Beta. So it was a great group of people to be in. And one thing that was also, my dad had passed away in 1971 when I was a freshman in high school, but he was he went to NDSU in the 1930s. And it turns out that today, the day you're doing this interview on April 6th, is the 86th anniversary of the forming of the North Dakota Beta chapter at North Dakota State. And my dad was one of those young men that was part of that inaugural group that went in. And that group was a group of young men. They came out of college. World War II started. My dad and many others that were in that group ended up serving in World War II. They enlisted after Pearl Harbor, went on. And one of his friends from growing up from a nearby town, 7 miles away from Arthur, Armenia, North Dakota, was another small town kid that was an SAE. They both ended up as naval officers. They both ended up in the Pacific. They both ended up living. And that friend of his was Governor Bill Guy, who was the other North Dakota governor. There's been 33, but he was the other one who was an SAE. And so we like to say that, close to 1/16 of governors in North Dakota have been SAEs, but Bill Guy was the first governor I met. He was came to my dad's funeral, as did a number of other fraternity brothers when I was a freshman in high school. And that made an impression on me right then, because there you were all those years later, and the brothers were still standing shoulder to shoulder, and they sang the Little Sister song to my mom, who was a little sister because her older brother was part of that original group in 1935 when Little Sisters actually were Little Sisters of members. And so we had a deep family connection, but it's been certainly a meaningful thing for me for my whole life.
So a crazy question. Is it true you actually hitchhiked to Alaska?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you can ask my fraternity brothers about that because it was between my sophomore and junior year of college, so 1976. And I left from Fargo, hitchhiked to the West Coast of British Columbia, jumped on a ferry, slept on the deck, got up to Skagway, hiked over the Chilkoot Trail for about 5 days, made it over to Dawson in the Yukon, and then hitchhiked my way all the way up through Alaska. And then, but the route home was, got on a plane and got home in time to be in my older brother's wedding with a bunch of other SAEs from his era in another small town in North Dakota. But that was a great adventure in the bicentennial year.
Well, bet. So what was your favorite experience, either as an undergrad or as an alumni, being an SAE?
Well, I think at undergrad, there was so many valuable lessons. I had an opportunity as a sophomore to be a rush chairman. When I was a senior, I had an opportunity to be EA of the chapter, and we had, so many great things there. But were very competitive in intramural sports. We took that very, very seriously. We were very serious about being involved in leadership. So in between being rush chairman and EA, I was student body president for NDSU. That was the last time I ran for an elected office, was when I was in college. And then I, took about 40 years off between that and running for governor, which is my first time I'd run for office for anything in politics. But all of those lessons learned, the leadership responsibilities that I had at the chapter, and the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the values, the true gentleman, which I've always had. I've had it on a card in my wallet, and I've had it on a plaque on the wall my entire life. I've tried to live by that, and I think that has served me well. Certainly served me well as when I was an entrepreneur and was building and starting tech companies. Those values that we learned in those leadership lessons were incredible asset for me my entire life. So I just feel like that there's so much that I owe to SAE and the values-based leadership that was really the big takeaway for me. That, and of course a group of lifetime friends that came from that.
So it's interesting that almost everyone that we've interviewed says something similar. I don't know if you can see it, but I have it, the same thing right here. And when I was at AT&T for nearly 30 years, I had it on my desk, and every day I would look at the true gentleman. And every day I would think, I feel like that is such a high bar. But then you make peace with it. And you're like, as long as you're gaining on every day, then you're getting better than you were the day before. So
that's right. Aspirational progress, not perfection. And I think that one of the things in the true gentleman is so needed today in our country is really it speaks to the compassion and the empathy and the understanding of people that may be in different situations than we are. And I think that that's been a super valuable leadership tool for me my whole life.
Thinks of the rights and feelings of other rather than his own. It's unfortunate that people can't do that more often.
Yes.
So I heard a great story about you, and you can tell me if it's true or not. But when you were selling your company to Microsoft, they flew in and you took them out for a day on the range, if you will. You put them to work.
Well,
is that true?
When we were working on some of the integration work with Microsoft, there was a team that came in, and we decided to get out of Fargo, and we met on a ranch and had a chance to get on horseback and go out and work some cattle and do all that. And I think when you get a chance to see people in that environment versus in the just sitting across a conference room table, you really you get a chance to really understand each other and where you're coming from. And I think that and it's interesting you bring that up too, because today, actually yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the acquisition of Great Plains Software by Microsoft. And that was obviously a historic day when that happened for all the 2,000 plus team members that were part of Great Plains. But it was a lot of the same values that I learned at SAE, we tried to really apply when we were building. We were really a value-based company. We were a tech company, but we were really value-based, and that was a key thing. And I know that those 2,000 team members also had a big impact on the trajectory of Microsoft, which of course is one of the great companies in the world today.
Sure. So Governor, you've had a lot of success over the years. What do you attribute it to?
Well, you have to start first of all with my parents. I mean, I was very fortunate to have two parents that were again really grounded in a lot of values, and obviously hard work was one of those. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, and sometimes, but if if you're the one that's working the hardest, sometimes then people think you're the luckiest because it puts you in a position. So I had a lot of great support from them. But then overcoming the loss of my dad dying when I was a freshman in high school, my mom went back to work, so she was a single mother, working and trying to raise three kids, and I think I gained a lot of empathy and understanding in a different way, and a lot of lessons learned from my mom after my dad was gone. And so it was I give them credit, but then I fell in with a great group of people at undergrad with the SAE and the SAE house. And I just have to say that really set me on a great trajectory.
So a lot of times when I do these video podcast interviews, I hear people talk about mistakes, and it's interesting because a lot of our younger brothers think you can't make a mistake, and I found quite the opposite to be true. So is there a mistake that you made that you can recall, one you can talk about, where you actually learned quite a bit as a result of that?
Well, I guess the first one that comes to mind is, after undergraduate, I had a chance to go to Stanford to business school, which was a great experience for a couple of years. And then I had this fantastic job working for McKinsey in Chicago for 3 years. So, I mean, life was great. I came across and saw what was happening in the very earliest days of the PC software industry, and said, wow, this is going to change the world. I'm young, I'm single. I'd love to be getting back, back home to North Dakota. Had an opportunity to buy into a little teeny startup in the software business, and I had inherited a small amount of farmland from my dad when he passed away. So I thought it was a great idea, after all this education experience, that I should mortgage the farm, literally bet the farm on on putting the money in. So I literally took a mortgage out on this farmland, and then that became the seed capital for Great Plains. And I thought it was the greatest idea in the world. And then 2 weeks later, I went to Comdex, the giant show, because all of my research, this is way before the internet, my research told me that there was about 5 companies in the world that had this idea of doing accounting software for PCs. And I wrote out the check, bet the farm, wrote out the check, got to Comdex, opened up the trade show book. There were 64 companies selling accounting software at the trade show, of which 59 I'd never heard of, and they were all way more capitalized than we were. And so, I started off my career with a massive mistake. I mean, I may not even ever written the check if I'd have known what I was getting into. But fear is a great motivator. When your whole family is initially said, boy, not a good idea to mortgage the farm or bet the farm on this, this sort of completely, nobody knew what a software company was in 1983. Anyway, that was a huge risk, and but fear is a great motivator. Put my head down, worked hard for the next 8 years. We came out the other side as one of the leaders in the industry in the early 90s, and then we just kept building on it from there. But I would have to list that one as I guess you'd call that a mistake. So I've been more careful on my due diligence ever since that first decision.
But that's the key learning, though, is you take that, and you've probably used that hundreds of times since then, which is a key, it's amazing. So
Absolutely.
If you could go back in time, is there anything in the early part of your career that you wish you could maybe do a little bit differently?
Well, I don't know about that, but I would maybe say it offer on your prior question. If you said, hey, what else have you learned from mistakes? Because I think they're so valuable. But we were growing, successful, well-known, had a large customer base. And one of the things I think we know from the values of the fraternity, about integrity and trust is one of the key things that really matters. We put out a release of software, which we thought was our best ever. And it turned out that within a few weeks, it was clear that there was some serious bugs in the software that were causing our customers and our partners real challenges. And when you're doing accounting software and people are counting on you and their books aren't coming out right, that's a serious thing. And so we went into that, we had our big conference, which was called Stampede, and which grew to be a huge conference at Microsoft. It became the worldwide partner and customer conference at Microsoft with 12,000 people. But we're talking in the early days, this was 500-600 of the most important people in the world all coming to Fargo for a meeting. We just released this really buggy software, and it was pitchforks and torches coming after us. And in that day, a lot of people might try to bury a mistake like that with a technology kind of BS sort of thing. But we took it head on, and the opening night of the conference, I got up in front of everybody, and I think that the key lesson there was we wanted to take full accountability for what we knew was causing them issues. But to really set it up to help them understand how serious we were, we had a guessing game where we had examples of what would be metaphors for what we had done, like shoot yourself in the foot and other things like that. Well, one of the old sayings is we've got egg on our face. And so in front of 500 of our most important partners and customers, I took out a fresh set of uncooked eggs, grabbed a bunch of them and smashed them on my head in front of everybody, and then did the Q&A with yolks dripping down my face to really, dramatize. And I can't even at the time remember, we weren't trying to make a spectacle, but it was really trying to say, look, we seriously understand we've got egg on our face, and we deeply apologize. And then as part of those remarks that night, I said, I know a lot of you want to sue us and a lot of your customers want to sue us, but we made an honest mistake. These are the changes we made in quality control. We're working to get a new release out to you at no cost. We'll ship it out to you at no cost. And if you can document the cost that it's been to you or your business, then don't get a lawyer. Just send us a letter and send us a bill for what your costs have been, and we'll figure out a way to pay you. We may not have all the money right now, but we'll figure out a way to make it whole with you. And we had 0 lawsuits. I had people write letters and say, I'm sending you this letter to, this thing cost us tens of thousands of dollars because of the problems with the software, but we've decided to drop all our other vendors and work just with you, because what matters to us is trust and integrity and people holding up their bargain. So I think that a lot of people think that leading is about, bravado. Part of it's about the humility to understand that we make real mistakes. And then sometimes if you could stand up and own those mistakes, then you can earn the trust of people. And I think that was really a turning point for our company, where we went from barely making it. And then people thought this was the death blow that was going to kill us. Our competitors were probably, that's the thing that's going to knock them out, and was actually the thing that launched us because of the way we responded.
Right. It actually could have been the death blow had you not handled it as well as you did. That's a great takeaway. So, yep. Governor, you get this opportunity a lot, I would imagine, as governor, to speak to young people, and part of our target audience is people that are still in school, they're getting ready to graduate, those just got out, and then some that are maybe changing jobs. What kind of advice would you give them as they start their journey? What would you tell them? Hey, this is it's been successful for me, and I think it will work for you. What would you tell them to do?
Well, I think the key thing that I would say to any undergraduate today, in the world changing as fast as it is that the thing that I think is the most overused question for an undergraduate is, what's your major? Sort of, and what's your major? What do you want to do in life? When I was an undergraduate, I was literally undecided. I mean, there was a thing at North Dakota State called University Studies that you were supposed to go into as just a freshman. And then you were supposed to declare which major and which college within the university that you were going to join at the end of your freshman year. And I snuck through in the end of my freshman year, my end of my sophomore year, and my junior year. And then they finally found me near the end of my junior year. And they're like, hey, you're still in university studies. This is a thing that's supposed to be for freshmen and undecided. We need you to do something. And I said, I don't really have a selection. So we kind of negotiated a thing where I tried to take the hodgepodge of classes I'd taken the first 3 years and said, and I'll write a paper and I'll tell you what classes I'm taking my senior year. And so then I became there's a bit of dispute whether I was the first or among the first ever to graduate in a thing called university studies. So my undergraduate degree is not a BS or a BA, it's a BUS. So get on the bus with a Bachelor of University Studies. But I have so I graduated as undecided. I went to grad school where I didn't have to declare a major at Stanford. So I was undecided for 2 years there, went to work for a great consulting firm, which was covering multiple industries. So I didn't have to decide there. And then that's when I, got hit by I sort of basically say got hit like a 2x4 in the head when I saw the first electronic spreadsheet on an Apple II computer and said, that's going to change the world. Then I said, now I know what I want to do. But I was, 25 years old when that happened. And guess what? When I was a senior in high school, I had never seen a personal computer. I'd never heard of software. There was not a computer in Arthur in the whole town. And so, when people are graduating from high school and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I tell kids all the time now, look, there will be an entire new industry. If you're 18, there'll be an entire new job categories and industry by the time you're 25 years old. You don't need to decide. You got to decide, figure out who you are, figure out what your values are, figure out what you're passionate about, figure out what you love, figure out what you care about, think about how you want to change the world, and then everything else will come to you. But it's not about, picking a major, picking a job, or I want to do this, because the world's just changing too fast. And so in that case, being undecided turned out to be a huge asset for me, because if I hadn't been open to what the world was offering up, I might have just, walked by that computer one day with that spreadsheet and said, wow, that's interesting, as opposed to, wow, that's going to change the world. And then that changed the whole path I went down.
I think that's amazing advice for people. I think too often people get pigeonholed in early in terms of I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. I don't know if I shared this early on when we first started talking. I had a similar experience in that I started off as a poli-sci major, found out that you had to take a foreign language, and I was not that strong at foreign language. And then I found if I could be a business major, I didn't have to take a foreign language. So I actually got into my field by avoiding something I didn't want to do. And it's funny how it works out. And then my daughter today can speak 7 languages, so I don't know where that broke down. But it's just interesting, the path. Everybody has their own path, and as long as you're open to it and you're willing to work and learn and grow, people can be successful. There is no one path, which I think is amazing. So I appreciate you so much for doing this for us. Is there any parting advice you'd like to leave for our brothers in SAE as we close this session out?
Well, I guess I would say to the undergraduates, time is so fleeting when you're in school, and I think that one of the things that from having gone to reunions over the years and seeing great friends and brothers that were these lifetime relationships that were built, is to not take for granted that time you're there, because it's the old truism that you get into it, you get out of it what you put into it. And I was fortunate, great pledge class, great set of brothers that were there, great set of mentors, great older, big brother program was great. But also the things like going to, national leadership school, going to a national convention. I mean, those things are fabulous memories that all contribute and added to what I would call sort of that value-based leadership skills that I took out. So if you think, what I get out of my undergraduate, yeah, the classes matter, I remember some of my professors, but man, I remember all the amazing parties. I remember all the, incredible, victories that we had. I remember the late night talks. I remember the trips we had, and all the things that we did. And it's just it's such a great opportunity, the platform that the fraternity provides for value-based leadership that can really, and those friendships that can carry you through your whole life. So I would just encourage, if you're in school right now, like it's been a very odd year, but coming out of it, there's going to be big and new opportunities the world's going to present to you, and these experiences are all going to help shape you. So I would say congratulations on choosing SAE, and again, make the most of it now, because it'll be the gift that keeps on giving back to you the rest of your life.
You got it. Well, Brother Burgum, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you. Phi
Thank
Alpha.
you. Thank you, Brother Mitchell. And thank you for your leadership and sacrifice. We need business leaders like you coming in and helping drive things at national. It's fantastic. So kudos to you and the great team you've built, and to everybody watching, Phi Alpha.
Thank you.
What a great interview. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. For more information about the SAE Foundation and its initiatives, visit SAE.net. Stay tuned for brand new episodes focusing on all things SAE and exciting interviews with notable alumni. Next month, we'll be back with another fraternity episode. So as always, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.